Okay, so we are hello everybody that's watching this live. Unfortunately, Ryder is not here yet. We don't know if there's been a scheduling mix-up or what have you, so I'm waiting to hear back from him. So I'm just going to bring him into the live stream when he shows up, and I'm hoping that's not going to be an if. Again, thanks for being here. I just didn't want to leave everybody. I'm seeing people, Dan, saying, I wonder if he forgot to make an entry into his journal. Let me just mute. You're gonna hear some backpedaling here. So yeah, it's I'm glad we're seeing some questions here. Hopefully he is able to turn up. There might have been some wires crossed, but definitely saw the reminder coming through on my side of things today. But these things can happen. The nice thing about emails is that I can actually see when people have seen their emails, and it doesn't look like they've even looked at them yet. So nonetheless, we're going to do what we can. In the meantime, I guess what I'll talk about while we're waiting, and hopefully, again, if we don't get them on in the next 15 to 20 minutes, we'll probably just end the live stream and we'll reschedule because we want to make sure that we get the best possible conversation out of here. So I'm going to keep my eye on Zoom. Hopefully he knocks, and he is the one who knocks, I guess. But I have the book here. I've noticed, and I don't know how many of you have noticed this in recent weeks, even months, really. There's been a higher, if you follow Ryder on Instagram or on any social media platforms, you probably noticed an increased amount of activity in terms of just sharing strategies and stuff. So if you're in the chat right now, just let me know where, if anything, you are keeping, like, do you use the bullet journal method? Have you taken it and started to use elements of it? If you're here live in the chat, then I'd love to hear from you on that front, because that's, I've always found that, I mean, and I've had Ryder on the program before, but the evolution of the bullet journal method has been something that's fascinating to me, and it's actually something that I think happens with any framework or approach that you have. Once you start to put it out into the world, it kind of takes on a life of its own. I wonder, to a degree, obviously not to the same degree that the bullet journal method has, but when it comes to time crafting, I'm wondering if the same thing hasn't happened to a degree. It'll be interesting to see whether or not, I'd love to hear from you whether or not you've seen that as well. There's been some things that have been modified over the years too when it comes to this stuff. But if you use the bullet journal method, I'm looking at the chat. Let me know. And that's true, Joe. Yeah, I see Joe in the chat saying lots of us block email trackers. That's a very good point. So I don't know if they've seen the emails or not. But if you've used the bullet journal method before, I'd love to hear from you. Let me know that you. So Justin, you use elements of it. The symbols I think are great. I actually have a couple of bullet journals in here. So I actually have a bullet journal right here. One of the original ones from the Kickstarter campaign from way back in the day. It's again, the evolution of it's been fascinating. What are some of the other elements that people use? So Edwards used it, but stopped because it became routine and couldn't be as creative. Interesting. Dan, yeah, you've used it. You're hunting for a method. The thing about bullet journaling, which I appreciate, which is, again, there's some common threads between it and, like, say, time crafting or some of the other methods out there, is that you can expand it or contract it, adapt it to how you want to use it. And Tammy, you've been doing it for a while now. It's quite the movement that it's had over the years. Like, it's taken on quite an adoption rate. And you see, if you go into YouTube, which you're in right now, if you're watching this live, you will see, hey, bullet journal with me, or take a look at my bullet journal, those kind of things. It's fascinating to see what people do with it. And again, that just goes to show the adaptability of it. Michael uses it for the daily list. So you pull from, see, that's another thing. It pulls from OmniFocus and Calendar and testing Todoist with Obsidian. Okay. So what I like about this, again, what I like about the analog is that, to me, and I've said this before, I think that the analog state of whatever tasks or projects or intentions that you have. That's why the daily driver exists, is really key, because it, it filters your focus. And tools like OmniFocus, Todoist, ClickUp, Obsidian, all these other places are kind of like they tether into this idea of long-term incubation, storage, projects not necessarily for today, those kind of things. And it's interesting because I think the bullet journal, if you're looking at it from, let's say, when we had Tiago on, the concept of the building a second brain methodology, or the building second brain formula, or even Nick Milo's linking your thinking, those things I don't think they can exist as well inside of something like this, inside of a bullet journal. They can, but the benefits of technology allow for quick searching, filtration, things like that. But for me, it highlights and amplifies the things that I need and want to do, which is why I've got the again, you've got this Hobonichi Tekko, which I like, which I'm just using in some respects, the Monk manual. Like there are many platforms you can use for this. Kimmy's used it for a while, stopped, and he's using day one, but the collections concept is there. You can even tag in day one with collections, I suppose. Minimalist, yes. I think that's how Ryder started with it, using it in a very minimal fashion, and others have kind of taken the ball and run with it as well. And yeah, when you get too elaborate with it, it goes well beyond, the capacity, or not even the capacity, but maybe the usefulness for some people, the utility for some people. So it is interesting that, the phenomenon of this, and he's got an app for the bullet journal method. And of course, again, the special edition journals and all that stuff. To think, and if you've looked back at the previous conversations I've had with him, and I believe we've had 2 conversations on the podcast, you'll find that he was taken aback by how popular it's become. And realistically, again, similarly to David Allen, to, Eisenhower, to anybody who's put their own kind of framework in place. Even you could go to like Bruce Lee with Jeet Kune Do and things like that. Like, you take from what and then you create your own, or it evolves into something that you can use. And then from there, once you put it out there, it's for others to use and others to adapt and adopt, or adopt and adapt, however you want. But I like the flexibility factor of the bullet journal method. And what I appreciate is writers like saying there's no wrong way to do it. It's just a framework that you can kind of get started with and see where it takes you from there. So we're at 15 minutes in. I feel that if he's not going to be here at this point in time, that it's probably not going to happen today, unfortunately, which is, it is what it is. Wires get crossed sometimes, that sort of thing. We've been working on putting this together for a while. We had to do some rescheduling, I think, at one point in time. But it sometimes these things happen. So what we're going to do is I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks to everyone. We'll get this rescheduled. Because we actually have this booked as a podcast episode to go live on the 22nd, which means we need to get it done sooner rather than later. We only have, normally we ask Keith, who you all know is producing the show. And it looks like there's been a cancellation here too. I think it's just been canceled. Oh no, it's still either that or he. Anyway, bottom line is that we need time to turn this around into an actual episode for everybody. So it kind of sucks, but these things happen. I think it's the first time it's happened where I've said we're going to be doing it as a live stream, and it kind of didn't happen. So when it happens again, we'll reschedule it. We'll make sure that you have access to it. Keep your questions at the ready. And this is an example of where wires get crossed, and it could very well be that it's one person had it in a calendar, another person didn't. There's, lots of interesting things. And that might be part of the conversation that we have with you as members of Premium is how did things happen, right? Like and this is an example of maybe where technology can either serve or fail you. I mean, that kind of thing. So it does suck, but we will try to endeavor to get this in the future, hopefully sooner rather than later. Thanks to everybody for tuning in though. I appreciate it. And I'm really sorry that we weren't able to deliver it to you today. I will be in touch and let you know when the next instance that we have this happening will take place, and hopefully it'll be soon. and I'll make sure I give you plenty of notice so you can set aside some time to get some questions. And by the way, for any of these live streams that we do, if you can't make it, in the comments of the event of the live stream, ask your questions, because I will actually ask them. Edward knows this. Pete, who's another premium member, knows this, is I ask them during the live stream. And if you're not on the live stream and you want to ask a question, I will gather those questions, and it will, there's a chance that your question will be asked during the podcast, and then you can hear what the answer is. I generally do that. So if you can never make a live stream of our conversations that we have for the podcast, take a moment to put it in the comments for that event. And that way we can see if your question gets asked, and more often than not, they do. Okay. Thanks to everybody. I really appreciate you tuning in, and I will see you tomorrow, hopefully in a Focus Fix session, as well as the special Groundhog Day edition of Focus Fix, the extended version. Okay. Take care. Thanks again. See you soon.